Happy weekend and happy new chapter, everyone. I loved all the discussions last week in the comments. It is always great to hear your thoughts. First ATS, www.reddit.com, RHFFI, comments on F0 9. Comment LSRITDR, code 63, 3 previous, www.reddit.com, RHFI, comments on 6 of A Draconics, 1/6 top. Chapter 55. Calesatris. Calesatris let off a sigh as she pulled the ledger off the stack nearby. The leaf ledger had been woven together with a skilled hand, and was now filled to the brim with important information. Calesatris had been promoted to the kobold ambassador, and her duties hadn't stopped since then. The Onyx Clan, as they called themselves now, had grown exponentially in size. Calesatris and the others were terrified of the clan's growth, but the Eldest had remained calm and had insisted on keeping diplomatic ties with the clan strong. To the Onyx Clan's credit, they had not done anything to violate that trust. They remained away from her people's forest and seemed to sustain themselves adequately inside their deep mountain lair. The benefits to her kin had been thrilling too, she considered. She looked down at the assortment of metal bracelets on her wrist and noted how these precious trinkets would have been an impossibility years ago. The Earth's very bounty had opened up to her people, and they were prospering. The biggest change was the high-quality weapons and armor that the kobolds produced. Ikana was beside herself with joy when she received her first blade forged of iron, and the lightweight chain mail shirts had already improved young kindred's survival rates on the hunts. The majority of their weapons had changed for the better too. They imported vast quantities of spear and arrowheads now. In exchange, the kobolds had simple needs like food, wood, and herbs. The single greatest export they had was their elder amber, and that was strictly controlled. To date, they hadn't used any to make any weapons, but Ikana was certain they would reach that point sooner than later. Calesatris let off a yawn as she stood to stretch before shifting her focus back to all the paperwork in front of her. Just as she sat back down, an eager Ikana came rushing in. The elder bow slung behind her back, and a look of worry was stretched across her face. "More trolls, Ikana?" "Nidai?" Calesatris asked quickly. The attacks had slowed over the years, but the orcs and trolls seemed to multiply endlessly, much like the kobolds, so they could never truly clear them from the mountains. Ikana shook her head. "I wish. Onyx, the black horror, is awakened." "Nidjesin, Ganain." Calesatris jumped to her feet and gulped. "Did something happen?" Ikana shook her head once more. "Merchant said he came out of the lair and was being cordial." "Calesatris, they said he's so large now, he could easily climb over the stone barriers they've constructed. I doubt my elder bow would even tickle him now." "Aina." Calesatris nodded and retrieved her notebooks nearby. "We have expected this, Ikana. I know it is your job to protect us, but let's remember that Onyx and his clan haven't ever shown us a reason to doubt their words. The elders themselves have verified his odd behavior is real." "Well," Ikana nodded firmly. "I know Calesatris. Just be careful, all right? I know that look. You are going to go speak with them now." "Ajajanchidei." Calesatris grinned wide. "I am too predictable." Calesatris's emotions almost bubbled over in glee from the chance to examine a full-grown dragon up close. Onyx was something special, and despite the importance of her new duties, she was still a dragon expert at heart. She collected herself and her material quickly before turning back to Ikana. "Will you join me? You will never have a better chance to learn about dragons and their weaknesses any other way," grinned Calesatris. Ikana sighed. "Very well. Let me get some of the others as well. Gather your staff, Ambassador." "Ijay." By the end of the day, their party became 8. 3 warriors, including Ikana, Calesatris, and her 4 staff. The trip was quick as they each touched and stepped through the elder trees, finding themselves instantly transported to the edge of the great forest. The people had seeded some elder trees closer to the kobolds over the years, so it didn't take long before the now stone bridge came into view. and further still the colossal walls of the lair. Calesatris took a deep breath, and then slowly let the air escape her chest before turning back to the group. "We will stay in the visitors' quarters tonight, and request an audience tomorrow." "David, Onyx." David rumbled lightly in the massive thigh. "Roan room," as the winged kobold Greyhide gave his report. Curiously, despite his name, Greyhide was a bright green-spotted kobold, and David couldn't help but wonder about the story behind it. He shifted his focus back to the kobold's words as he continued his report. "We have spotted 13 dragons of various stages at the outskirts of our scouting range. It takes us a day to a day and a half by wing to reach these spots." Greyhide chirped as he pointed to various points on the map. The map was carved into a thick, large stone table in front of David. While still too small for him to ever practically use it, did make the map large enough for him to easily make out the various points of interest. The endless mountain ranges had been mapped nearby and labeled, their lair, the Bark Folks' forest, and even the path they took from the deep mountains to get to where their lair is now. The most surprising thing was the map stretched as far as the Twin Mountains where they recovered the Earth Worshippers, Ballista, and the area around the Queen's Plateau. David was impressed that they had used their 10 years so wisely. "Of these 13, are there any we consider highly dangerous?" David rumbled. Emerald, who was standing nearby, nodded and pointed to one of the points as she spoke. "Master, this is the lair of Vorenle." "Nornan, a green side Shabiga." David cocked his head as he took a moment. Vorenle was the lesser hydra he fought with in the Crossroad Valley and was hyper-aggressive, David recalled. He glanced back down at Emerald. "We can handle a lesser hydra if it comes to it." Emerald shook her head quickly as Greyhide spoke up. "Great Master, Vorenle is now full-grown." "Nichurni." David blinked in surprise as Blue spoke up this time. "We found him in hibernation last year. He must have entered it around when you did. He has awoken only in the last few weeks." "No." David chirped a loud, annoyed curse. "Could you not slay him in his sleep?" The kobolds around the table all blinked in surprise, and Red simply laughed. "Master, we cannot destroy a master's shell when they are undergoing that large of a growth. Only you would be able to manage it." "Nisyuni." David nodded in thought. He knew they formed protective cocoons when they underwent sleep, but he didn't think it would be a task that even Red would struggle with. He sighed. "I suspect he is working happily with the Queen, too." Greyhide nodded. "Meetings with Ambas and Cirth have been spotted recently. They seemed friendly enough." "Arona Janadon." David nodded once more. "We should come up with plans to deal with him now. I do not want to even try to convince him to side with us. His temperament was not pleasant last we spoke." "No. They all nodded around the table and moved on to the other markings on the map. They hadn't gotten far before they were interrupted by the thundering of a spear butt against the stone floor, and a kobold on the far tunnel bellowing out. Os called the ambassador of the forest folk, bark-skinned and closest of allies to Clan Onyx. "Narwati die." David shifted his massive form with a massive grin was plastered across his dragon face. Perfect timing. "Calesatris." As the party stepped forward into the massively impressive hall, the large rumbling mountain spoke. "Perfect timing." He did so. Everyone around her let off a stunned gasp, and Calesatris herself had to take a moment to process what she was seeing. The dragon before her, Onyx, was even larger than they had forecasted. Her brain had trouble processing that he was a living, breathing creature, and despite the logical side of her brain, knowing Onyx was friendly, she only felt fear. The warm, cheery voice of Blue broke the group out of their sudden fright. "Welcome, honored allies. Come. Master Onyx has been awaiting your visit." "Nah." The group took a few moments, but they all quickly recovered and resumed their march forward. A great stone table was set in front of the great dragon, and an incredibly detailed map was carved into its surface. Calesatris gasped in glee, and murmurs went around her group. Ikana was the first to speak up as she stepped closer, clearly eyeing the different markings with a tactician's eye. Her voice had a hint of tension to it as she spoke and pointed. I have never seen anything like this before. What are these marks? I see one in our great forest. Calesatris frowned at Ikana before turning back to the kobolds and Onyx. She spoke a crisp and clear dragon tongue now. We are honored you accepted us on short notice. Forgive us, but our captain has inquired about your map, and the markings specifically. Red, their military leader, stepped forward and exchanged some simple words in their tongue with Ikana. She could already see Ikana relaxing as she returned the greetings in simple dragon speak. The two had fought many battles together and had forged a trusted bond that surpassed words. Calesatris relaxed as well as the once black horror. And now Onyx spoke. These markings are exactly what I was hoping to discuss with you all. Each represents a dragon and a problem. As your captain has noticed, there is one buried deep in your forest. David answered, and Calesatris quickly translated. Kana murmured a name, and Calesatris translated it back instantly. Forest Stalker. That is what we call it. It has been an issue for a while, but it is an elusive one. 90. Yanwol. Onyx rumbled out suddenly as he gave her the equivalent of a wicked grin. She is indeed. That is one of my nest siblings, and we have met. I have a proposition for you all. Allow us to enter your forest and remove this forest stalker. I will either convince her to relocate or kill her myself. No. Calesatris blinked as she processed his words. So it was a she, after all, and one birthed around the same time as Onyx, she considered. She fought the rising excitement and urged to pull out her notebook. She took a deep breath as she turned back to the group to continue to translate for everyone present. Why would you do this for us? What benefit would it give you? Calesatris questioned. She had to be careful and look out for her people at the end of the day. The massive dragon let off a terrifying rumble as he lowered his head. Speaker, it is quite simple. We will benefit by gaining an ally or by removing a future threat to our clan. You will also benefit by the removal of something that is no doubt stealing your hunting grounds. She nodded her head firmly. We accept your offer on the condition we may escort you. Certainly. I would have it no other way. Now I believe we owe you time to discuss some trade agreements and reconfirmation of oaths, chirped the massive dragon as its grin widened. She knew through her training and experience that the dragon's grin wasn't intended to be intimidating, but a cold shiver of fear still ran through her spine and down her body. www.reddit.com RHFI comments on F0 9 comment LJ White Me Teen Der Context 3 previous https www.com RHFIs RHF comments ONS 16 of A Draconic Rebirth Chapter 54. Here is also a link to a Royal Road TTPs www.royalroad.com Tion 98,532 A Draconic Rebirth.